Happy New Year's to those in 2026. 2035 was a meh year for my timeline, but at least I got that video on Spyworks finally done after so long. Anyways, here's a highlight reel. Thundercats is based on nothing. Yeah, some people push this narrative that they were based on the toy line or the comics, but from my research, the show was planned out first, and the other two were planned out after the fact. So with the show hitting its 40th anniversary, 50th in my timeline/reality, it's time for me to see if the show has held up after all these years. Side note, how much you want to bet the rights holders for Thundercats aren't doing shit for these anniversaries? Spoiler alert, it's Warner Brothers handling this property, so I'm not gonna bet too high. But my favorite is probably Snarf. He's got some good dialogue and chemistry, his bond with Lionel is great, and he also gets some great moments where he gets the dub/save the group. Sure, some people complain that he's useless or doesn't do as much compared to the rest of the cast, but I don't see that at all, at least in this season. He's just a little guy trying to figure out what the fuck to do after his initial job of being Lionel's guardian kinda died due to cryostasis. Snarf's basically most parents trying to raise a preteen/adult. As for Lois, she is initially devastated to find out the truth about him slowly dying, saying that she wanted to have kids with him and spend the rest of her life with him, a common regret loved ones have with their partner who's dying, or potentially dying, at such a young age, and one that's executed really well here, through the VA work and the animation/music. Now, yes, in hindsight, the aspect of them being unable to have kids due to their different biologies is fucking laughable, because not only does Jonathan Kent exist in the comics, but we also have the end of the movie that implies Lois might be responsible for birthing the new Superman because Lex states that a healthy human ovum is required, and the last line being, they always talked about having kids. But it's still a really damn effective scene, and how it conveys a loved one's reaction to their partner slowly dying from something that can't be cured. Even after Metropolis is taken over by the two, and after getting his ass beat hard by them, he still shows compassion and forgiveness for the two astronauts, because as he says himself, he was raised to forgive others, and I think that's a great way to describe who Superman is at his core. He may have the strength of a superhuman, and may not be from Earth, but he still acts and feels like he is a human, one that inspires hope and optimism out of everyone, both his enemies and his allies.
Skip it up and up!
It's very much possible that I might have missed this on the reread, but the scene in question where Clark is talking to his mother, that's not in the comic. It was made exclusively for the movie, and they just gave her 2 lines? Are you kidding me? That's his fucking mom! We spend more time with these 2 twinks than with Martha fucking Kent? Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. My main goal here isn't to act objective or to change anyone's mind. It's just me to give my opinion on what I like or dislike in a piece of media, and then that's it. Some people will agree, some people won't, and that's perfectly fine, and I got no issue with those who disagree with that. Hell, as I've stated multiple times in the past, I got no issue with those who disagree with me. It just means that they found something that I didn't, or enjoyed something that I just personally didn't like, and that's okay. This whole channel is just being subjective about a piece of media, and my opinion doesn't overtake anyone else's. Fuck, I went off traffic again. That's when I remembered this movie exists. A movie about using the remaining time you have left to live life to the fullest. Leave a positive impact on those around you, and dealing with loose ends before the time to meet the Reaper arrives. Now, could it have been done better? Yes, as I indicated earlier in this script, it could have been done better. However, I still love this movie, even if it does have a big flaw that is its rush pacing, because at its core, it's still a great Superman story that encapsulated what Superman and Clark Kent are.
So as part of Australian defamation law, there is a concept known as contextual truth, and
Okay, let's read this. Yeah, I am at... Okay, fair enough. But here's the problem with that. Couldn't an argument be made that depending on the claim in question, if it's on how serious the claim is, that it could overshadow the non-defamatory one? Because I imagine that'd be a case-by-case basis. Otherwise, that could probably be exploited easily by some people in those courts. So I imagine that some of those courts are looking at it on a case-by-case basis. Actually, where is this definition even from? Let me look at this. Wait a minute! No! No fucking shot! No shot! Give me a minute. No. Carl, what the fuck? The source is from an AI overview of the goddamn thing. I can't write this shit. It's evidence. It's fucking AI. Alright, let's look it up from an actual fucking legal site instead of using fucking AI overview. That's interesting, Senator. Why aren't you backing up with a source? My source is DeepSeek.
Alright, you got my interest. What do these new threats do? Plan to demolish the city. Okay, a little small scale, but maybe they're working their way up. Steal a high school project to create their baddie. Okay, that's a massive change, but hey, maybe this is meant to be a reference to the older days before the show gets more serious. This is an empire we're talking about, and fighting veteran rangers with a lot of experience after all. Uses a clown to amplify a baby crying as a plot to potentially destroy the city. Okay, this is getting stupid. Sucking up one of the rangers. Okay. Let's skip to the halfway point. They must be a threat then, right? Okay, episode 25. They try to sabotage Tanya's chances at a music career and also send a robot to be an annoyance. You know, if you were going to toss out the old villains in favor of an empire, I need to emphasize that, an empire, and then just resort to the same tiresome fucking plans of the old villains, why not just keep the old villains as the main antagonists then? It'd be one thing if the heroes were inexperienced as well as the empire, but neither are the case here. The Rangers have been fighting stuff like this for years, and the empire has taken over almost all of the universe according to the lore. So you could have fooled me on the ladder considering what the empire does in these episodes. But hey, their plans may be incredibly generic. Maybe they're interesting as antagonists? No. Their personalities come off as generic, monster of the week at best, disposable schlock. And these are the Rangers' main antagonists for the season. Fuck me. And it's not like they couldn't make this empire interesting or threatening as antagonists for veteran Rangers. I mean, for fuck's sake, I reviewed Thundercats earlier this year, and they made Mumra a very great antagonist, and that was made for a much, much younger audience than this show is. So what the fuck happened here? But hey, maybe they couldn't make them interesting or threatening because of the stuff regarding the network. Maybe it's, that happens. So what else did Fox Kids air at the time? Well, I don't know, nothing too big, just X-Men the Animated fucking Series! The same series that had Xavier make Magneto remember the events of the fucking Holocaust! Oh, and also adapted Days of Future Past, which had mutants being hunted down and/or placed in camps. What I'm saying is that there isn't even an excuse to make the Machine Empire flatter as interesting as Graphite because of network restrictions. The higher-ups chose to have the writers make them this way. Outside of the Sentai footage where they fight the monsters, is about Tommy hooking up with a side character and failing due to his ranger duties, and it ends with Kat developing feelings for Tommy, and Tommy feeling the same way for Kat. Why was this 3 episodes? This felt so dragged out that it's not even funny. And for what? To kickstart another romance with Tommy and the Pink Ranger? Why in the fuck did you break up the relationship with Kim and Tommy for Kat and Tommy? And furthermore, they don't even really do anything with this shit. So you made a new fucking pairing, and you barely did anything with it. What the fuck? I can't write this shit. Oh, and by the way, this is basically all Kat gets in terms of character development for the season. Well, Tommy, oh boy, Tommy gets 4 episodes dedicated to his indigenous heritage. Her development is about romancing a guy. I fucking hate it here. So, Billy aged up to an elderly man due to the side effects of his invention from Alien Rangers Season 3, whatever. Very slow acting side effects, I might add, since this takes place in episode 47. And he has to go to Aquatar to get cured, but he falls in love with one of its residents and stays with her. Man, I wonder why this sudden departure happened. It couldn't be because the crew were being incredibly homophobic to the actor to the point where he quit. I mean, that would be silly. That would imply the crew were more focused on bullying one of its fucking stars into near suicide over something that was out of its control than creating a good season and/or creating a good environment for the fucking cast. But no, see, it was clearly over a pay dispute, and Yost being a pain in the ass to work with, according to producer Scott Pagter, which is why we never ever heard any other story since the Power Rangers franchise ended of Yost being a pain in the ass to work with. Not even on Cosmic Fury where he was a major character. There's just nothing else here. But that would imply that Scott lied and hey, who would go to the news and lie? That's just unheard of. And that's why it's my least favorite Power Ranger season. Turbo absolutely has a lot of problems, some of which were similar to fucking Zeo, but when the second half hit and swapped out the cast with newbies, it did start to improve for me. Operation Overdrive is a really, really bad fucking season, but the only thing that it follows up on when it comes to prior events is the Once a Ranger special, and the show also revolves around a cast of newbies. Granted, that cast is pretty fucking awful, but at least it's a one and done, and I can wash my hands of them before going into the next season. Super Mega Force is also
really fucking bad. But it does have some really good episodes that pay tribute to the previous seasons of the show, and also, at least to me at least, a fun train wreck to watch in how many ways they failed at making this show work. Like, we're talking fucking shotgun sound effects for cutting somebody in half. That's funny, even if it's just flat out incompetence. But Zeo is not a one and done like Operation Overdrive is, nor is it a fun train wreck like Super Mega Force is. It's meant to be the continuation of MMPR, an evolution of what came before it, and in my eyes, it fails in every aspect except music. Maybe the proper term is most disappointing and not least favorite, and that's fair. But even on its own merits, I didn't enjoy this season, and that's a damn shame.
Hey, let's have contestants open a coconut and maneuver through a course to put the juice into a tube. Or balance on wood in the sea until you touch it with your hands or fall off.
Do we got stupid written on my forehead?
How about grab a shell, and the last one to come up with a shell is out. Okay, well here's one where you take the rocks out of a boat underwater and then bail it out and you paddle back. Should I even talk much about the kite challenge? Seriously, a fucking kite challenge. A kite challenge. Okay, so remember how in my Africa review I mentioned how stupid it was to use the rites of passage music in scenes that had nothing to do with the rites of passage? Well, it's back, and reused more this season. Fuck!
For one night, you're a member of Saliantu.
Well, hey, at the very least, they use a new song for the rites of passage, and it fucking sucks. Also, they couldn't even be bothered to have the following contestants give words in this section like they did with the last 3 seasons. Are you fucking kidding me? Outside of that, he's also well known for his very deep speech about people of color having to work twice as hard to be on equal footing with white people, and was very active in the topic of racism and discrimination, both on the show and off the show, as he was very angry at production for only bringing back Alicia for All Stars and not bringing back other African-American contestants like him and Vesepia, his ride or die of the season. But yeah, Sean was a very important figure in Survivor, and it's so unfortunate that he was treated like shit by production and Marquesas, as well as by the casting and veteran seasons. He deserves so much better than that. So, remember that bit earlier where I was talking about Sarah? Yeah, it's back here, because as a person, however, he can fuck right off. I sincerely hope he didn't do similar things to Nalia. Am I happy that we finally got an African-American winner in Survivor? Abso-fucking-lutely, that's incredible. It just sucks personally that she got an edit that depicted her as very quiet, untrustworthy to her allies, and weak in challenges and game moves. She deserved a much better edit. But yeah, as a whole, a lot of the contestants this time around weren't all that great, and even the winner was kind of weak due to the weird edit she got, and I think that's probably the best way I can describe Marquesas. A fucking mess that feels like a step backwards in so many ways when compared to the first 3 seasons. But, at the very least, I can say that I finally saw it. It was certainly a season of Survivor. I'd say hopefully the next season will be better than this, but for what I have seen, that one's gonna be fucking painful. So naturally, with all this talent and hype, they initially released the series on Nico Nico. Okay, so it started off on a bad note. But hey, maybe the later seasons help Crystal regain its footing. Well, we got Chiaki Kon as the director, who is incredibly hit or miss with her works. But the animation did improve, as did the story a bit, so if they continue in this positive direction, they could make a decent the last 2 arcs or movies. Oh, and they swapped out directors with someone who is inexperienced with directing movies. All of this was over the course of 9 years. It took them until after Sailor Moon's 30th anniversary to finish this project. In the manga, that is. Crystal, unfortunately, has this issue across all of its seasons and the movies, where it hits the fucking fast forward button on the manga, and as such leads to incredibly rushed pacing, and not a lot of time spent processing the information we're given before we move on to the next plot point. As such, any intrigue or depth on the cast that you might have, except for Usagi Mamoru, the tuxedo guy I mentioned earlier, is next to non-existent in this version because they're given their introductions and then are just background help for the rest of the series. Even in the Eternals movie, where they are given some info on their backstories, it goes by so quickly that it feels like a footnote to that character rather than something important. One note, hardly any development or depth. Just walls to be knocked down by our main cast, which was also a problem in the manga, so it doesn't adapt the good parts of the manga properly, but it has no issue adapting the worst elements?
Fuck off. Oh, and it's not even a full one-to-one adaptation, because Jadeite survived longer than he did in the manga. Same with Nephrite.
You had one job to do.
Oh, and, of course, the dumbest change personally. The revelation that the 4 Kings of Heaven, Mamoru's guards in the past life, were in love with the other members of the Sailor Scouts. So, in the original manga and the 90s version, one of the reasons Mamoru and Usagi's relationship, in their past life, was special was because Usagi was the princess of the Moon Kingdom, while Mamoru was the prince of the Earth Kingdom. Space Romeo and Juliet, basically, since the relationship wasn't supposed to be known by either kingdom, nor allowed. By giving that same trait to the other members of the Sailor Scouts, however, it removes one of the key things that made Mamoru and Usagi's relationship so special, and it also removes the point of it being fucking secretive when the other Guardians were also doing it. I understand that it's based on this image, and that it's basically what was planned the entire time from Takeuchi. I'd still tell her to get off the fucking bath salts if I was her editor back then, because this idea sounds absolutely fucking asinine and only hurts the main relationship rather than helps it for reasons I already explained above. So yes, it is more faithful to the original manga, but it not only showcases the flaws of the source material much more clearer, but it also creates new ones thanks to its rushed pacing and some baffling additions that only hurt the show more than help it. And this was to celebrate Naoki Takeuchi's magnum opus. And sure, the last 2 arcs finally got proper adaptations, and the animation/art style was gorgeous. But like a monkey's paw, it only accomplished the bare minimum, and added 7 layers of negatives that made the wish not worth it at all. Okay, before I make a complete ass out of myself, more than I already do, I want to make this addendum. She does suddenly get pregnant when this itty-bitty circle enters her body. So basically, Usagi is the Virgin Mary in this version, because it's after this circle is absorbed by Usagi that Usagi states she's suddenly pregnant. So, basically Mamoru got cucked by a star. I just can't get over that. Cucked by a fucking star. Because I've seen what this franchise is capable of. I've seen some genuinely emotional moments come out of this series, like the initial death of the Sailor Scouts in the season 1 finale of the 90s series, and Usagi and Mamoru's relationship blossom over the course of the manga. I've seen some great fucking fights, and some of the best manga art in the industry, on par with the late Kentaro Miura and the IG Chika group, the artists behind Record of Ragnarok, and so on and so forth. But Crystal is what happens when you give someone all the resources to make something, and they give you something they made an hour before the deadline was due. Hey, but at least it looks pretty. At the very least, I finally got to see this to completion, so there is some silver lining to this, but honestly, I would just recommend reading the manga. But that's just me. I understand and get that there are fans of Crystal, and frankly, more power to those people. Just because I dislike something doesn't mean you have to share in my misery. Enjoy what you enjoy, basically. Sometimes I don't want to read a long-running deep story or the 90th forgettable shonen battle manga that focuses more on flashy battles and great characters. Sometimes I just want to read something that'll give me a good source of serotonin, even if it's for a little bit. That's why I love reading stories like Komi Can't Communicate, Spy Family, the Skill Teacher Tagaki series, Way of the House Husband, or sometimes I'll throw on a fucking episode of Chi Sweet Home to get that serotonin as I just kick back to watch some wholesome stuff. You know, to balance out what I watch sometimes. I love this wholesome stuff. Inject that serotonin into my fucking veins. Like, just give me some cute shit to watch for a little bit. So to see something as wholesome as the first half of the Usagi Drop series dip so fucking far into garbage in the second half, it fucking sucks to see. Because I don't feel that wholesome spark, nor that serotonin when reading this half of the story. I feel fucking sick to my stomach, and I want to take a fucking chemical bath instead. But I'm willing to grant some grace to the author, because this is the only work of hers that has this shit. And every author does dumb shit at one point. Hell, some authors do objectively worse than what Yumi Unita did, by having said authors engaging in criminal shit, and they are forgiven by some of their fans for some fucking reason, and even some mangaka are still willing to work with them years later. The punchline is, I fucking hate Nobuhiro Watsuki. Anyways, if the worst mistake you can make at work is a fucking gross idea for a character, then while I don't support that idea, it's a case where you could easily look back on it and cringe, but also have a laugh about that stupid idea. We all make our fair share of mistakes, whether it be as video creators, as people, and especially in this case, as authors. But we take the L, we learn from it, and then we go mock/insult the objectively horrible authors that engaged in crime. Araki is based. Which also means the Master Emerald got destroyed, so, you know, world's kind of fucked if they have to deal with a big threat again. But hey, maybe there isn't any— Oh, hi, Frontiers! Yeah, I guess they repaired the emeralds with duct tape or something. Some hazards can one-shot your ass like these purple flames. What the fuck is that plane made out of? Eyelashes? Say what you will about Tales as I say 2 stages, but I can at least control my movement in that game with the 1% chance of it fucking up. In Omens, however, it's a 1% chance that something doesn't go wrong while I'm doing the tail stages. Galvatron and Megatron are different characters in this? Are you fucking serious? In most continuities, they're the same goddamn character! The only time they're separate in non-fan films are the IDW comics, and even in that series, I wasn't a fan of making them separate characters. I thought that was fucking stupid. I do have a script of the original cut which has more lines for Optimus, so let's take a look. Oh god! Oh fuck! Frankly, by now, most people talking about JJK don't even care about the ending anymore, as they've either moved on to Yege's next project, getting hyped for the next season of the anime, or reading something else. This would be like making a fixed version of the Naruto ending, but by the time it's done, Boruto 2 Blue Vortex came out. Most of the audience who'd be interested in this have flown so far away from this by now, they're on the other side of the planet. So they probably don't get much of a shit if this series got finished or not, because they've either accepted the ending for the original for what it is, or just moved on to read something else. Hell, does anyone remember Attack on Titan Requiem? That was announced in 2021, and it's still not fucking done. Some people probably just Google that name to remember what it even was. Because much like JJ no Requiem, a lot of its potential audience moved on to other series, or just accepted the ending for what it was. He at least gives enough of a shit to strike up a lengthy conversation with Hajime about strength, and how love is worthless to him because he doesn't need anyone to fulfill him before he gets turned into Haji Bites. But in No Kaizen, he gets sliced up and forgotten about. Unfucking believable! So what does Arame do then? Go and find Suguna's last finger. They have no idea where to look for it. Suguna doesn't know where it is, so I guess Arame's just gonna dick around for a bit on a wild goose chase, I guess. Suguna didn't even know where it was in the manga. He thought Yuta ate the damn thing at one point, so how would either him or Arame know where it is? Fuck, this is stupid. Oh, but isn't it cool to see a Broly that won? Or a Cell that killed Gohan? It would be, but question, how many of them are all that different from their original versions, minus living longer and of course being stronger? Well... And that's the problem I have with this premise of the alternate universes consisting mostly of characters with slight tweaks to the timeline like a villain winning. Most of them stayed the same as they did in the original manga/anime, but they got to live a little longer and of course are fucking strong. That might work as an interesting dynamic if the story was consistent with that, and also didn't paint Vegito as an abusive piece of shit that threatened to kill his daughter, painting him as drastically out of character. I know, a dad doesn't like another dad abusing his own flesh and blood. Wait till I tell you about how I found a fork in the kitchen. It would kill someone as that's where the heart is. The punchline is, Goku's heart and by extension Saiyan heart are not located there. It's closer to where his left breast is, and this is consistent across various Dragon Ball series, including Super. I would have expected the fan/creator of this story to remember a detail like that, especially because it's an important factor to 21 winning the match. Out of all 107 chapters this webcomic got since 2008 to 2025, 53 focus on the tournament. The rest are focused on the backstories of the other universes. Only 50% of the tournament is actually focused on the fucking tournament! And considering how most of these universes barely change up any of the characters from their original selves in terms of personality and like, being the strongest and living longer than the canon, a lot of these backstory chapters just feel like a fucking slog to read through because it doesn't really mean much in the grand scheme of things. So it's no wonder this shit went on for so long. The author was taking on so many side quests that they treated the main quest as a fucking afterthought. And it's still not done yet, because it's still going, just that there's no tournament anymore. At this point, Toyotaro could pass away in his 80s, and this webcomic would still be going on through AI or some shit. Hell, maybe we'll get GTA 6 before Multiverse is finally fucking over. 2 GTA games would have come out in the time it took for this fucking webcomic to finish. Holy shit! Holy shit, people! Touch the fucking grass! Your icons are Leafeon! You're made of that shit! A meth addict? The fuck? And also a sex addict? I really fucking hope those are adults. How come your winter-looking ass down? They were. I would never host a show with teenagers on it. I'm not a Hollywood celebrity. Well, that's a relief. Also, what the f***? Do I agree with the sentiment that you shouldn't make things out of spite? No.
What? 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 What?
A lot of what I showcased still had a good amount of love poured into them, and some of them weren't even really spiteful, just controversial, which there's a fucking difference in definition between those two words, people. The common thread amongst these works, though, even the bad ones, were that they had great ideas, but they fumbled in execution when it came time to make it. But that isn't exclusive to spite projects. This even happens to projects made strictly out of love. Sometimes our ideas don't always work, but as long as we try,
we can take what we learned from that experience as well as the criticisms and try to make a better product when or if we get back on that creative horse. Because as long as you keep trying, you will gradually get better. And even if not, you at least learned a lot from the experience, and as humans, one of the greatest experiences is learning and improving ourselves. Also, here's the thing about those projects made out of spite. If things were truly done solely off of spite, you want to know what most of those projects would be? Fucking dead! Because spite is a negative feeling like anger, and like anger, it eventually fades and apathy sets in. So something else has to be there for the creator to finish these projects. And with a lot of those projects, there is something else there to help finish that project. To use an example, let's use fire making. Spite would be like coconut husk, or pine leaves / cones if you ever use that. It's a good starter for a flame, but it burns out quickly, so something has to be there in order to keep that fire lit, and it's clear that with all these projects I talked about today, that were considered spite works by the community, there was some structure / passion there that allowed the flame to keep burning until it was done burning said structure, whereas if it was just solely spite, it would have died out really quick. Spite can be a great start, but there's also something else there to help carry the flame to its completion once that spite fades and apathy sets in. In my mind, as long as you get out there and create / see to completion, I have no issue at all with Spiteworks. Even if it does suck in my eyes, you clearly had some passion in doing this project, and you went out there and gave it a shot, and you got a lot of experience / learned a lot during the production that you can use to improve your future works. There is nothing to be ashamed of in that aspect. You went out and tried. That's why, even at my most harshest, I never ever told any of these creators to quit creating or give up in this video, because while I think some of these projects were not great, I know these people learned a lot from their experience creating these projects and can use that experience to make better works later down the line if they keep trying. Something that doesn't happen if enough people tell them to just quit. When that happens, there's no chance to see them improve their craft. There's no chance to see them get better. It stops dead. So yeah, I think spite works can be good, and even when they're not, there's always a chance the person's next project will be much better. What matters is they keep trying and they keep learning.
Then they nuke the planet, thinking it'll kill the zombies and shit. It doesn't. Then we find out there's flying zombies and titan zombies. Then we find out that a new species of zombies is created by having zombies magically fuse into a giant fuck-off creature. Then we find out there are hybrid zombies like spider zombies. And then, in the middle of all of this, the remains of humanity have a faction that creates the equivalent of a fucking earthquake machine that could create one powerful enough to destroy the planet? This has to be a fucking parody, right? Because this sounds like something that's taking the piss out of these scenarios, right? No, it's played straight. Fucking Christ, this is dumb. What the fuck is next? Plants that I'm done. Fuck this! Okay, what's next? Black Divide. Scenario where racial tensions reach their peak and causes the governing body of the US to go completely extinct. When was this posted? June 22nd, 2025? The same month as the 2025 Los Angeles protests? Could this be any more tone deaf? Hey, I forget, and this also goes out to my Christian / Catholic viewers. Doesn't the Bible state that the righteous would inherit the land and dwell in it forever? Also, didn't it also say that the fourth angel scorched people with fire, yet it takes place at the end? So let me get this straight. If that's true, you decided to go with the Christian version of the end times, but you couldn't even adapt it properly? Bruh! Another fucking zombie ass. God, how many of them are there? Why does this look like it's from the 28 Days Later series? You really couldn't just find a flag and throw a piss filter on this guy you had to AI gen it? Fuck off! That's over it, huh? Not as subtle as a fucking... Wait! How long is that video? Three fucking hours? Are you fucking nuts? Calling it now. The next EAS zombie scenario is gonna have fucking zombie peanuts in it. Fucking Mr. Peanut will rise from the dead, and it turns out that all this time, peanuts were the result of Mr. Peanut's kooky magic. What's next? An EAS scenario in San Francisco getting a big earthquake, and then it turns out to also be an earthquake.
They're being orchestrated by some advanced device buried within the Earth.
I was fucking joking! A small fragment of the asteroid breaks off and hits a town in Virginia with enough energy to set fire to 86% of North America's continent. Not just the state of Virginia, the entire continent. Oh, and apparently scorched parts of Europe and Africa. South America's fine, though. I guess they could just jump over the flames. How fucking big is this asteroid? Jupiter-sized? So we went from small fragment to main fragment to an asteroid. Who the fuck wrote this shit? Heaton Mitsuru?
Wanna guess how long it takes for the contestants to completely ignore this? Time's up, less than a couple of minutes.
Guys, I'm like a broken record.
You know, people say that we've gotten dumber over the years because of social media and shit, and personally, no, we were always this dumb because remember, this was 2002.
Well, for the first time, I have a vote. I have no idea who it belongs to. Who wrote Bye Bye Denver Diva? No.
Oh, right, silly me. Because for the longest time, they didn't give a fuck about the contestants being groped, or SA'd, or harassed. Because, spoiler alert, it's not the last time this happened on Survivor. Say what you will about the new era, and it does have its issues, but they've taken steps to ensure something like what happened here with Gandia, or with Sue in All-Stars, or Kelly on Island of the Idols, and I'm sure there's plenty more I can fucking think of, doesn't happen again. This shit should have gotten Ted fucking pulled. But again, as we're seeing with this season and with other seasons until the new era, they didn't give a fuck. So his excuse for taking out Helen at Final Four, which we had no idea about until Final Travel, by the way, was that he saw Ted and Helen talking and writing stuff in the sand, and he assumed that it was a plan to take him out.
There was a picking order that you were scheming with Ted. That was told to me through Jan, because I felt you were trying to take me out next.
So instead of just asking Helen about it when they were planning to get Ted out in Final 5, he just assumed she betrayed his ass and lies to her face at Final 4 about her being safe, when in reality, he was one of the people that sent her ass home. And sure, maybe there would have been a scenario in which Brian confronts Helen and Helen just lied to him. He should have just told Helen at Final 4 that she was going home since that was part of their Alliance House partnership. Let the other know if they were going home that night. Brian almost lost the game because despite being portrayed as the uber special mastermind of the season, he was a fucking dumbass on 2 occasions. Sure, he invented the strategy of taking the unpopular person to the end in American Survivor, but his strategy nearly fucking backfired because he couldn't bother to be honest to Ken or Aaron when answering their questions. He only won by 1 vote, meaning that another misogynistic piece of shit would have won the season over the other one if Brian was even worse at his jury management / answering their questions.
For this insult, for this defiance, I will take everything from you, Kal-El, and your Earth. I'm the hand of God. I'm the dark Messiah. I'm the vengeful one.
They do a really good job elevating the other when they're down, bring out the best in each other, but the show is also not afraid to showcase their struggles and issues. First, when Lois finds out Clark is Superman and the consequences of that action. And then in Season 2, when Lois is at a crossroads between staying in Metropolis or going to Gotham to better her career while also feeling like she's inadequate / not deserving of Clark's love and affection because of how different they are. It makes their relationship feel a lot more natural and genuine than other adaptations, and when they finally clear those hurdles and reunite / kiss, it makes those moments shine all the brighter, because the show is given time to not only breathe when it comes to their relationship, but it also showcases both the good and bad times between the two, like a real relationship has. I haven't seen this level of writing for the two since I think Smallville maybe, back in the 2000s? Although I hear the CW Superman and Lois series also has some really damn good writing for the two, so I'll get back to you on that one when I eventually see it. The point is, this is easily one of the highlights of the show, and it only gets better from here. First off, in the pilot, Clark was not happy with Lois for lying to him and Jimmy about their assignment and keeping secrets, which told Lois that he was against secrets and lying. And yet, here he is, doing the exact same thing he got on her case for. No shit she'd be upset over that. Secondly, literally in the episode before this, Lois told Clark to his face about her issues with her dad. One of them being, he was incredibly distant, secretive, and was not there for her when she needed him the most. At this point in the story, Lois was beginning to develop a trust / bond with Clark, and thought that he wouldn't be like her dad. So to see him keep secrets from her, it was like reopening those old wounds and pouring fucking salt on it. Of course she'd be fucking upset. Point the fucking third. Why isn't she entitled to this information about him being Superman? At this point in the story, they were becoming friendly / developing a bond. So why the fuck not tell her? Especially given that at multiple points before the reveal, she was willing to do whatever it took to get to the truth, even handcuffing herself to Superman to get a goddamn scoop. Even outside of that, Lois shows multiple times in both this series and other media that she can often handle herself just fine. She's not Mary Jane for fuck's sake. She's just a woman determined to get to the truth no matter what, but can also back herself up when the time is right. And she gets plenty of badass moments in this series especially. Oh, but why did she throw herself off the building? Because she knew Clark / Superman would save her. Even at this point in the series, she picked up on his true nature and wouldn't let someone like her hit the ground and die from that fall. Put simply, the entire controversy is fucking stupid, and the fact that I, a fucking dumbass, can understand what the show was going for more than some people who are objectively smarter than me is fucking sad! Like, come the fuck on! You're better than that! It honestly warms my heart to see a Superman project helmed by those with genuine love and affection for the character and his verse, after years and years of dog shit from other adaptations and the like. Hopefully it will go on as long as it did in my timeline, but only time will tell, because in other realities, WB is currently being sold off to another studio, some are saying Netflix, some are saying Paramount, and it's hard to say if the planned Season 3 will be affected or not, depending on who gets WB. But for now, I do recommend giving the show a chance if you haven't seen it already. As you can tell from this video, I really fucking liked it. But that's just me.
But I'm not done yet.
Fate has deemed you two the heroes of this story. Then fate deems me
as your villain.